And one thing you can be sure of is at the end of the day, the president is going to build the wall. He said he was going to get it done, and he will.
Now, the House announced it'll vote on the deal tomorrow. The proposed agreement gives the president more than $1 billion, about $1.375 billion, for border barriers and doesn't lower the cap on ICE detention beds at border holding facilities. Now, for more on this, let's bring in our good friend, Jessie Jane Duff. Jessie is a senior fellow at the London Center for Policy Research and a 20-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps. It's gunny, Jessie, to you. Hey, Jessie, good to see you.
Hi, it's so good to be here, John. Thank you for inviting me.
Always a pleasure. All right, do you think the president signs this bill, Jessie? You're hooked in D.C. You have your ear to the ground, a lot of sources. What do you think?
Yep. Yeah, so one of my key sources, that is the chief of staff on the Hill, said they haven't even read the bill. It's over 1,000 pages, over 1,000 pages. So here's some of the landmines that the president is talking about. They very well may have included in this that he can't declare a national emergency. If this is the case, why would he sign it? Because they will remove one of the capabilities that he certainly has to get this wall built. There are a multitude of landmines that are probably in there. And for them to say that, okay, we're giving you a little over $1 billion after 5.7, it was requested. That is a tragic compromise, because at the end of the day, we all know there was more in this that the president wanted. He wanted to ensure that the ports of entry had better security. He wanted to ensure our border patrol was being funded. He wants to make sure that this doesn't become a nebulous onion of bureaucracy and we actually solve the problem on the border instead of put a little bandage on a sucking chest wound.
You know, Jessie, here's my problem, and you and I typically agree on these things, all right? So sometimes we're in an echo chamber. But I don't see where the Democrats gave here. I don't see where they gave. We got a static number of beds at the ICE detention centers, and the Democrats were still able to shave, just $3.75 billion off of what Trump wanted for the wall. Seems like a big win to Democrats, and the Republicans didn't really get anything they wanted.
Well, here's where they did give something. Nancy said she wouldn't even give $1. So I guess this is an improvement off of the dollar. You know, drinking that Napa wine seems to have tarnished her brain, because she tries to call this a more immoral issue. How many times can you say that with a straight face, Nancy? Because you know that has nothing to do with this. You know this is about security of our nation. We put barriers around the military bases that I served on in this country. Was that immoral? Should Americans been able to roam freely onto the military bases and had access to what we were doing? I mean, this is just foolishness when we hear this type of rhetoric that has no substantial basis to it. This country's probably far moral than most in the world, considering that we want to protect the women and children that are being human trafficked across those borders. We want to ensure that the 33.33% of women that are raped or sexually assaulted in that journey are discouraged from even taking the journey. When we're looking at the children, I've heard numbers as low as 10,000 and higher of children that are that are human trafficked across that border. And guess where they go? To those sanctuary cities.
Yeah.
Look at what happened in New York with the MS-13 guy that killed another gang member. He had been detained by local law enforcement. So tell me what the moral issue, Nancy, is. The morality is in protecting Americans and legal immigrants who are here legally. That's the moral issue.
You know, the irony of this, Jessie, so Sabina Durden, good friend of mine, good friend of the show, an angel mom, lost her son Dominic to an illegal alien, goes up to Capitol Hill today with other angel families, and she's putting photos up on Facebook how Nancy Pelosi hid from the angel families behind walls and behind men with guns, right? Two things she doesn't believe in, guns and walls. But Nancy Pelosi hides from those people. You can see that photo up on my Twitter, @JohnCardillo. All right, Jessie, let me play a clip of Sean Hannity over on Fox. Now, he was a very vocal critic of President Trump when Trump reopened the government about 3 weeks ago with no wall funding. But now Sean, who is a very close ally and friend of the president, says he would be okay if Trump signed the deal. Let's listen.
President decides he wants to sign the compromise, which would guarantee the $1.375 billion down payment for the wall. Okay, that money can be used immediately. Now, if he takes step two, which is the president utilizing money he's identified, some $900 million for additional construction that is already available for the administration's discretion. That would be about $2.3 billion. But the important third step needs to happen simultaneously, and that would be the president would need to declare a national emergency.
Now, Jessie, I agree with a lot of what Sean said, and here's why. And I want to get your opinion on this. It's really more commentary on my part. I want to get your opinion. I think the president and Mitch McConnell are doing something very smart right now. They're aligned. They're joined at the hip. They're in lockstep. There's no division between the White House and the Senate where we have the GOP majority. So I think the president can politically stand, while he's still got Barr's nomination pending, he wants more judges through, to get into a battle with Senate Republicans. So say he takes the deal, he signs the deal for that reason alone. Do you think he gets support from those same Senate Republicans if he exercises an emergency option for the rest of the funding?
Well, what it's going to boil down to that nobody's addressing is that have they read this bill? Like,
right.
At the end of the day, we are talking 1,000 pages. And let's assume then that he still can declare a national emergency. He can't sign this if there's landmines in it, like he had said, that will hamstring him and tie his hands behind his back so that he can go no further. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Democrats put that in the bill. I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever. However, I agree with you that Mitch McConnell is coming forward and standing strong with the president on this. Should he sign it and he can still declare a national emergency, should he need to, or he can get some of the funding from other departments and still move forward with the wall, great. Otherwise, he doesn't have to shut down the government. He can do what's called a continued resolution. We've been doing this for, the last 8 years, and keep kicking the can down the road, and then he can force the Democrats to sign on if they want to get funding for any of their little pet baby projects for the next fiscal year. So there's many options that the president has, and I think that Sean Hannity, as much as I adore him, he hasn't read it, nor have you, and neither of us know what's actually in this. So to give advice to sign something is really tough for me to say right now.
You know what? You're 100% right, Jesse. That's a great point. None of us know what's in that bill. We all criticized Obamacare. You have to sign it so we could find out what's in it. And I think you're right. You're spot on. We should know what's in that bill. All right, before we run out of time, I want to talk to you about the most immature proposal I've ever seen come out of D.C., and that's this new Green Deal, or the Green New Deal, whatever they're calling it.
I was going to guess that. The Green Deal. The most immature. Cow farts and no more planes.
Now, McConnell's going to hold the vote on the proposal.
Keep doing it.
McConnell's going to hold the vote on the proposal. People like Jeff Markey are beside themselves saying it's a Republican trick. But it's not. I think McConnell needs to put this to a vote so the American people can see how outrageous it is. Now, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said Mitch McConnell will show how out of touch the GOP is with the American people. But I think when the American people see that Ocasio-Cortez wants them to take a train to Hawaii out of their car and give their money to people who are unwilling to work, I don't think they're going to be buying the Democrats' platform. I've got about 45 seconds, Jesse, for your response.
Yeah, this is the globalist idealism of having you and me on a train while they can afford to be on cars and planes. First of all, let's look what's gone on in California. Gavin Newsom had to can their rail deal because they already got $3.5 billion from the federal government, which they're saying they're not going to give back. Another additional $1 billion from Californians in a 10 to 12 cent tax on our gasoline for this green measure that never saw the light of day. 10 years ago that got passed. They promised that it would be done by 2022. And guess what? It started at $33 billion and now is up to $98 billion in cost. They can't do it. Taking a train from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast would be 15 hours. Who's going to tolerate that? So I love Mitch McConnell. How many of you want to not get on a plane anymore every weekend when you head home?
Yeah, it's so ludicrous that the only word I came up with was immature. It is an asinine and immature.
It's perfect.
Proposal.
It's perfect.
Jessie Jane Duff, always a pleasure to see you, my friend. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Joe.